We love to hold on to our pain and our suffering. I
Speak on
say,
that.
I say some people have baggage, other people have monogram luggage.
That's a true story. It's like some people's have forged an identity around their suffering and around their trauma and story, and they don't know who they would be without that story. Peace and riches blessings. I am Michael B. Beckwith, the host of Take Back Your Mind. Radical blessings to you all, and welcome to Take Back Your Mind. I have a very wonderful friend that's going to come on with us in a little bit. I'm talking about Iyanla Vanzant. You might be living under a rock if you've never heard of Iyanla. I'll give a formal introduction of her in just a moment. But right now, we're going to go to the life question of the week. And you know what? If you have a question that you would like me to answer, we're receptive. Peace and blessings. Now it's time for the life question of the week. And thank you all for sending in your questions. And we didn't choose yours this week. Maybe next week or the week after. Anyway, Lindsay R. writes this. I'm one who does the spiritual work. When I think I'm finally past my issues and all is well, before I know it, here I am back again with the same issues. This has been happening over and over for years now. And I feel like I'm stuck in a loop tape. Why does it feel like I can't truly transform? This is a great question. Let me break down transformation for a moment. The word trans means to go beyond. So we're going beyond the present formation of our life. The present formation of our life is the condensation of beliefs, perceptions, opinions, points of view, positionalities, interpretation of experiences that have condensed themselves into our life experience. So the inner work we're doing is to go beyond the formation of our life. So I love that you're using the word transformation. Now, in the process of doing the inner work, there are many times where it feels like we're stuck or going backwards. Now, this is why. This is one of the reasons why. First, individuals have a unique way of interpreting their sense of separation. Separation, the sense of separation is the big bugaboo. Everyone lives with a certain degree of a sense of separation. Separation from what? Separation from the divine. Separation from the all good. Separation from the truth. Now, in reality, we're never separated from the divine. We're never separated from the presence. That's never an absence. But it appears so based on our perception. So what happens is, as we're doing inner work and we're making progress, we're healing, we're releasing the lies about ourselves, etc., there are moments in which it appears we're going backwards because that which is unlike the higher frequency that we're now becoming involved with, it pulls up the debris, the mental pollution. And when it pulls it up, it feels like we're going backwards. But in fact, we're not going backwards, we're chemicalizing. That means we're releasing the garbage that has been stuck within us. But what does it feel like? It feels like our unique sense of separation is activated again, because it is, except that you're at a higher level. If you could catch this, many people think that growth is linear, like we're going from one level to, or going from one level to another level like that. It's actually like a spiral, meaning that you are spiraling, as I've taught over the years, and expanding your awareness. So every time your awareness, so the spiral goes like this, it gets wider and wider. So every time, I'll just use this language, every time you go to another level or expand your awareness, Then there's a release of toxins. You feel that you're going backwards. You're not. You're releasing toxins, but it feels like it, and you've actually spiraled to a wider expression of yourself. So when it feels like you're stuck, it means you're releasing toxins, or it's not stagnation, it is gestation. There's something new trying to be born within you. So what do? You don't fight, you don't resist, you don't try to pray it away. You just become aware that you're releasing toxins, you're gestating a bigger idea of yourself, and then you watch as it begins to transmute into a higher frequency. If you don't resist it, it will not persist. Lindsay, I hope that assists you. Until next week, that is the life question of the week. Peace and blessings. Today, I welcome you into this dynamic with Iyanla Vanzant. Recently, I'm going to tell you a little bit about her, but recently I was in Columbus, Ohio, walking down the street. I was about to do a presentation the next day, and this lady started screaming, and she recognized me, and then she says, "And how is your sister?" And I said, "My sister?" She said, "Iyanla Vanzant, how's your sister?" And I said, "Oh, she is my sister." Aren't you brother and sister? And I said, "Well, not biologically, but we've known each other for years. So yeah, she's my sister." So I'm introducing you to Iyanla as my sister, as the young lady in Columbus, Ohio, pointed out to me. And so I know you know who she is, but she's been called, she is a treasure, an American treasure, known as a spiritual life coach, personal development facilitator, author, television personality, and spiritual technician. I love that terminology, spiritual technician. She's the founder and executive director of Inner Visions Institute for Spiritual Development, is known for her appearances on the Oprah Winfrey Show and her stellar showing on the award-winning Unscripted reality show, Iyanla Fix My Life, which was on the Oprah Winfrey Network. I remember when she was first starting that show, and she called and said, "Michael, do you like this title, Fix My Life?" I don't really like the title, but we got to go with what works. She has penned 19 titles, 19, 6 of which have become the New York Times best-selling sellers, and her books continue to sell. She has an Emmy, 4 NAACP Image Awards, 3 Gracie Awards, 3 honorary degrees, recently awarded the Walden Award by Unity Worldwide Ministries as a socially conscious leader, making the world a better place through mind-body healing. As the owner and curator of the Masterpiece, PEACE Body Therapy, a line of natural body care products. She creates products that clean the body and clears energy of the body, and just emerged from her relationship with her daughter. Now retired from television, which is interesting to me, and semi-retired, and which is interesting to me, from public appearances. She spends much of her time in her happy place, her quilting studio. We're going to have to talk about that. So Iyanla, after all of these years, it was 7, right? This groundbreaking, that was a groundbreaking bit of television that you did, Unscripted, working with individuals. I mean, you were working with all kinds of people. I mean, you went into the depths of despair and tragedy and the betrayal and all manner of things. What was that like? I mean, 7 years, that's a long time.
8 years.
8. Okay.
Give me my last year.
We got to get that last year in there. That was probably the hardest one. I was even on there a couple of times.
It was hard, particularly when it's done. It's time to go, and you have to walk it all the way out with excellence.
Yes.
And just throw your hands up. It was, first of all, it was humbling, Michael. It was humbling. And let me greet your audience and your family listening to this podcast. And I never had any doubt that you were my brother. Jamia called you her godfather, so you had a brother. But it was humbling that God would assign me and people would trust me into the depths of their life. Sometimes we don't even tell our sister, our mother, or what's going on with us. And so strangers would
Right.
allow me into that, the depths of their life, the depths of their despair, their suffering, their conflict, was really humbling. So I knew it was a very high calling.
Mm-hmm.
It was also very taxing. It was really taxing because try as we might, and even though we may be unconscious of it, we love to hold on to our pain and our suffering. I
Speak on
say,
that.
I say some people have baggage, other people have monogram luggage.
That's a true story. It's like some people's have forged an identity around their suffering and around the trauma and story, and they don't know who they would be without that story.
That's right. And not only do they not know who they will be, but as a function of the story, they don't know who they will be enough to manage who they're becoming.
Right.
So they fight you to let that go. And
Right.
you want to be right about the stories we tell and the things we make up. So it was sometimes taxing because I learned a long time ago, I'm not going to fight you into your healing. I
Right.
will guide you, lead you, support you, but I'm not going to fight you into your healing. And it was always interesting because you saw 48 minutes and I was with people sometimes 3, 4, 5 days. So it was interesting because I would say, okay, people need to see this so that they get this. And, there just isn't time. So based upon what people saw, they would draw conclusions about me, about the guest, about whatever. It took really 2 or 3 seasons for people to settle in and start looking for themselves. Start
Right.
looking for
Right. Right.
themselves.
It was very popular. That you received an Emmy for that, right?
Yeah, no, not an Emmy. We never got nominated for an Emmy because we didn't fit in any category.
That's right, because you had your own unscripted reality show
Right.
that was really about not just reality, the way reality shows are, just going for the drama, but it was really a transformational reality show.
That's right.
And
And so
there's no category for that.
we weren't competition, so we couldn't go up against like Top Chef or
Right, right, right.
and we weren't scripted, so we couldn't go for scripted drama. We weren't a special, so we never got nominated for an Emmy because there was no category for us to
But you
fit in.
have received an Emmy.
For starting over,
Oh,
starting
right.
over
I remember
way
that.
back in
Yeah,
2005 and 6. So we
yeah,
got an Emmy for that.
yeah, I
Uh,
remember that.
so it was really a blessing in my life because it taught me how far I have come and it
You
taught
did
me
it.
the possibilities of healing.
Yeah, you did a bang up job on that. And going back to this other point, and I've tried to tell some of my practitioners when they're going through the program, is that there's two different worlds clashing. There's the world that the therapist is having, that's seeing the client whole and possibility. And there's the world that the client is living in, which is what you just described. They're holding on to their traumas and drama, and you cannot allow them to win.
No,
Eventually they have to come into the world that you see about them,
yeah.
the possibility and the potential, even though, as you've said, they're fighting all along the
All
way.
the way. Well, you
You
know
have
what?
to win that fight.
You have to. You have to. It's not
You're
even
not,
a
but it's
fight.
not a fight. Like you
A
say, you're not
fight is
fighting them.
scrapping. It's a battle
Yeah,
because you have to have a strategy. You
right,
don't need a strategy for a fight. But
right.
when you go into battle, you have to have a strategy. So my strategy was to always have the client set an intention. What
Yeah,
is it you want out of this? Not what I want.
right.
My strategy was every room that we filmed in, I had 2 prayer warriors. I
Mhm.
had 2 prayer warriors so that I could be present with the person and they were creating the energy, creating the energy. I had the client, the guests very often, I would make them bathe. I would
Wow.
send herbs and things, bathe in this for 2
And a lot
days.
of your good product that you had to clear the energy, I imagine. Yeah.
And they all came in having done homework so
Mhm.
that some of the things that I would say to them wouldn't be new. I
Right,
had them answer a series of questions because that was my strategy. I had to tenderize the consciousness.
right.
So
This is
there
why
were,
they call you a technician.
that's it. That's what I am. I'm a technician. I'm a diagnose,
Yeah.
repair, and then clean up.
Right, right, right. But this idea in terms of therapy, in terms of having them set an intention, you're engaging them with what
Yes.
they want. And then I imagine you help smooth that out a little bit so they can articulate a little bit better, because we discover, both of us know that many, people live a life without intention. I always say that people have an intention deficit disorder. They don't, people are just walking around life with no intention.
IDD, yeah.
They just they just experience whatever it's contagious in the world. But
Yes.
with an intention, you begin to have somewhat of a rudder, a sail, and then your practice gives you the wind for the sail. So you're actually engaging them to participate in their own transformation.
They have to.
Yeah.
They have to. And I think one of the mistakes that many teachers, my teachers even, teachers and therapists and counselors make is the failure to realize that whoever the client is, they hold the answer to their own challenge, problem.
Right.
They hold it. And if you're good at what you do, you either give them the information that invokes it and calls it up, or you provide the environment that pulls it out, that draws it out. And that's what I tried to do on Fix My Life, to provide the environment where people recognize that they have their own answers, they can solve their own problems. It's like when the student is ready, the teacher appears. When the student is really ready, the teacher disappears.
Yeah, I love that.
So,
I love it.
And since I knew I would be disappearing, I had to give them what I needed to make them, remind them, because we do know, Michael, we know.
Yeah.
Remind them, you know what to do.
Right.
You know what to do. Let's remove your resistance to doing it.
Yeah.
You know the truth. Let's
Yeah.
remove your resistance to remembering it. Yeah, because
Right.
you do know.
And the habits that people have into protecting that little personality they think is them. They developed a certain coping mechanisms and defense mechanisms, protecting that who they think they are.
Yeah.
Just a shell of who they are. Yeah.
Well, when your luggage comes down the thing, if you got it at JCPenney, you just pick it up and go on. But if you have it monogrammed and if it has tags on it, you take it off and you start brushing it off and you want to protect it. And that's how people are with their wounds, their hurts, their stories, their judgment, their unforgiveness. It's monogram luggage.
Yeah. Yeah. You had a way of expanding their context for life. They weren't just these little people bumping through life. You gave them a bigger context.
Yeah.
That context, they're actually spiritual beings. They're actually more than just the product of their environment or they're the son or daughter of their parents. They're actually bigger than all of that.
Yeah.
But you had a way of sneaking in a larger context so that their perception would change, and then their thoughts would change, and then their habits would change. And we'd actually see transformation on television.
See it. You could see. I know one of the things that I did, and I think I owed it to my grandmother who scrubbed floors to feed me and my brother, is I use culture very often, and specifically as a woman of color, African culture, Native American culture. I remember whenever I was working with multiple members of a family, siblings, I always put them in age order. I gave them responsibilities based on their age order. And they had never had that meaning. They had never had that value. When you say to someone, even as broken and dysfunctional as you are the elder. And they don't look to you. You have to look up. No, you can't talk to the elder like that. And I'd make them sit in age order. I'll never forget with the Mitchell brothers, which was one of the stories that never ended on Fix My Life. I think I did about 4 or 5 episodes with those brothers. And by the time it was all over, even though Michael seemed to be the most challenged one, they would always look at him as the elder. What do you think, Michael? And he, whatever y'all want, but that was okay. The mere fact that they asked him. The other thing was really reminding women about who they are and their power as women, which I think sometimes gets murky in this society. When we have to look at, I think a beautiful story there was Hazel E. When she was in conflict, and I put her in front of Harriet Tubman, Mary McLeod Bethune, Dorothy Hyde, and a stream of women of color on the wall. And I said, sing those lyrics to them. When you as a Black woman are singing, pop that butt, to Harriet Tubman, it takes on a whole nother meaning that you need to be conscious about. You understand?
Yeah, you gave them a meta point of view.
Yes.
You had them look at themselves through Harriet Tubman's eyes,
Right.
or Dorothy Height, or anyone, saying, and made them like self-reflect.
You have
Do I
to.
really want to do this?
Right. Do I really want to, as a woman of color, understanding what Harriet Tubman and Sojourner Truth went to, stand in front of the public in a thong singing "Pop My Butt"? Do
Right.
you really want to do that? Now, if you do, that's a choice, but
Right.
understand that there's another way.
Right. It's not an unconscious choice. You're actually choosing to do this.
Right. Right.
Yeah, that's powerful. But you brought up something in terms of the power of women these days. And obviously we're in an age and a time in which that rise of the feminine is happening. I mean, the genie is never going to be put back in the bottle where that is concerned. There's going to be bumps and starts, and patriarchal consciousness is going to try to push it back, but it's happening all over the world.
Yeah.
Where that whole energy is rising up for uniqueness and equality. And it's good to see some of it, as we've noticed recently in Iran, is coming out with a lot of hurt and death and revolution, and some of it's more subtle in other parts of the world. But nothing is stopping it.
No, nothing. Nothing's going to stop it. Nothing. Not the Supreme Court decision.
Nothing.
Not the fact that, imagine these young women in Iran are fighting for the right to wear their hair out, dying for the right to wear their hair out. But that's what's happening.
Yes.
What saddens me is the number of years most of us just ignored that it was going on.
Yes.
And that's what I mean, the oppression of women and the dehumanization of women and the dismissal of women. We just ignored that it was going on.
Yeah.
And that's why I believe it's coming forth with such force and
Yes.
and in some cases brutality, but it's not going to stop. It's not going to stop.
This is one of the first times in which the men have become more involved with it. The men basically walking with their sisters and their aunties and their moms. It's like, because before, even the men were keeping their sisters oppressed.
Yes.
But something's happened. Something's happened in the psyche now, because you have these men that are stepping up and walking with the women on the streets. I was watching a film of them walking down the streets, tearing off the burqa and throwing it in the street and dancing and singing this revolutionary song, of which the man who wrote the song was jailed 2 days later. Just for writing the song.
Right.
So that's what kind of society and stage of consciousness they're in. But it's a little different now, because now men are involved as allies.
That's right.
With this. They don't want to live this way either, because the guards are in jail along with the prisoners. So if you're oppressing somebody, you're also oppressed yourself. It's just an illusion that you're free, because you have to use a lot of energy to keep your foot on somebody's neck. So this is an interesting time we're living in, and you've done a lot of work to help navigate that transformation. I was I wasn't in Dubai. I can't remember where I was. I was in the Middle East, and I had a driver. Somebody was assigned to me. I was over there, and the guy was a young guy, and he was saying, "Oh yes, we used to think women were second-class citizens, and we're growing to realize that they're human and they're equal to us." And I said, "Really?" I said, "Where did you get this?" He says, "Oh, we saw Oprah, and we saw Iyanla on television." I said, "What?" I said, "What did you say?" He said, we saw Oprah on television, and we saw Iyanla, and they were talking." I said, "What?" Because it's not even broadcast there legally, I remember telling Oprah that. I said, "You got men over there changing their point of view about women by the guests you're having on your TV program." It was beautiful. It was
it's time. We have to do it. We have to do it. And my focus right now is supporting people in recognizing, understanding, embracing this new normal. Because so many people are trying to continue into this 21st century with outdated models of being, outdated models of thinking, outdated models of everything. And I knew I mean, I felt it, you know, we've studied it, we've heard about it, there's been all kinds of prophecies about it. But I knew for sure it was here during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Because the one thing I realized was that nothing ever in the history of this world, I would say, has ever shut the church down.
It shut
Nothing.
everything down.
Shut everything down. And now when you can't go to church, so I said, okay, this is it. This is it.
Yeah.
Nature is really challenging our concepts about life, about God, about who we are. Miss Corona said very clearly two things: go home, be still.
Yep.
Go home, and home we know is where the heart is. And
Yep.
stillness is what brings forth the voice of the creator.
Yep.
Because it took the churches a couple of weeks to get on Zoom and took Zoom a minute to kind of catch up. So I said, okay, this thing has shut the church down. So
Yeah.
that means spirit is really working and moving.
Yeah.
And it really inspired people in a way once they got over the fear and once they could find some toilet paper.
But it is true. I called it the Corona bonus.
Yes,
You
I
know,
loved it. I
at
loved
the
it.
time, and
Not
I
the
kept
death, not the
no,
death
no,
and the trauma,
no.
but the time just to be still because, you know, I was filming Fix My Life. I hadn't been home 6 consecutive weeks in 8 years.
Mm.
So to be able to be home from March to May and not have to go nowhere. When I had to go out, I didn't want to go.
I know people. A lot of people still are upset they have to go out. But I used to ask people at that time. I would say, "Listen, who do you want to be when we go to the new normal?
Right.
You don't want to be the same person prior to the lockdown. This is the first time in history that healthy people were locked down.
That's right.
It's never happened before. They've put people in quarantine who were sick,
Yes.
but the government has never put people in quarantine except, you know, different things like with the Japanese and with the
Right.
slavery and things like that. But they never put healthy people in quarantine. So I basically said, who do you want to be? Ask yourself, ask your soul, who do you want to be when we're able to go back out again? Stop fighting against what is.
Yeah.
And use this, as you're saying, use this as a moment of transformation. So when we are ready to go back out again, we're not the same people. As you're talking about, there's a new normal, there's a new way of being, and there's a new way of appreciating ourselves, new way of appreciating nature, new way of appreciating each other. Because if we don't use this time of introspection, you know, it's just a waste of time just to go, you know, one of my ministers, Julie would say, you know, binge watch your thoughts, not TV. You know, go in and she put that in a sermon one day. I said, "Ooh, I'm still in that." She said, binge watch your thoughts so that you can actually be different when you go out.
Yeah.
And a lot of people did that.
A lot didn't.
Yeah, a lot didn't, but a lot
Didn't.
of people went back to the basic stuff again. But a lot
Yeah.
of people broke their habits. A lot of people left jobs that they hated and became more entrepreneurial. A lot of people, you know, went back to school. They thought they could never go to school again. I mean, a lot of people changed. And as you said, a lot of people just went back to business as usual. And that's the way humanity is.
Yeah.
But it was definitely a blessing for those who used the time wisely.
Yes.
Because
Absolutely.
time is neutral.
Yeah.
You know, you can use it for transformation or you can use it for entertainment. You know,
Yes.
and I'm glad that so many people in our Agape community, we actually went through some things together.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Very-
it's a beautiful. I think I had a friend write me this morning. She said, "I need to talk to you because I'm working desperately, feverishly, trying to figure out the next steps for my life, and I'm not landing on anything." And I said to her, "Okay, we can talk, but I just want you to know this is not the time to try to figure anything out. This is a time to create a vision for yourself, an intention for yourself, and allow it to unfold based on the work you're doing internally."
Yeah.
I mean, I could give you the whole astrological piece about Saturn conjunct Pluto and all of that, but basically, this is a time for just what your book says, life visioning. And
Yeah,
get it
you're
real
speaking the
clear.
truth.
That's what time it is right now. Wait a minute, let me do that. That's what time it is right now because we're so used to trying to figure everything out. And I say to people all the time, you know, that scripture, Proverbs 3:26, lean not on your own understanding, but honor God in all thy ways, and he will direct that path. Because for me, at my age, and I'm talking about retiring, and I'm one of those people that didn't have a 401k. I mean, I've been self-employed for the past 45 years. I didn't have a 401k. I didn't have a company paying my, retirement fund and everything. So here I am at my age looking at, I'm like, okay, so what do I do? And fear not, for I am with you. I will never leave you nor forsake you. What's your vision? Okay, what's your vision? So I haven't worked now, and I've been off the air now for 2.5, almost 3 years. I do what I want to do. Like I said, I quilt. And
that's just so amazing to me, because you have so much energy and you have so much inspired wisdom. So my mind can't really grasp Iyanla retired. So I know there has to be something that's emerging. Maybe it hasn't emerged yet.
But it is. It is.
There's something emerging. There's something.
I'm retired from the matrix.
There you go.
Okay. I have to go out and have anybody send me a check or pay me. I sit right in my house. I'm teaching online. Yeah. I'm doing it very different, which, 20 years ago, when you get 70, you want your watch and you want your check coming in the mail every month. I didn't even know that I had to apply for Medicare because I'm of the age. They won't cover me with private insurance. I had to apply for Medicare.
You got it, right?
Yeah, I didn't even know what it was. I had no idea. And then they told me because I didn't apply at the right time, they were going to penalize me. I was like, oh Lord, I'm being penalized for something that I didn't even know about. And then when I got it, not only did they not penalize me, they gave it to me retroactively.
Medicare. And what about Social Security?
Yes. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know anything.
You know what? That's because see, that's your money.
Yeah, I know. Who knew?
You put your money in there, and you have certain forces in the political aspect of life trying to take Social Security away, and it's our money.
Listen, but you know what? When you don't live in the matrix, I've never been dependent upon the matrix. I know you know about that.
Absolutely.
So I never.
Matrix was a documentary.
Huh? Yeah.
The Matrix was a documentary.
I never occupied my mind with those things. So retired meaning in my brain, where I spent the last 35, 40 years speaking here, running there, really to earn a living. Now I do it if I want to, when I want to. Yeah. You can call me anytime, right? But the corporation could call me and I'd have to look and say, okay, what reruns of Law and Order are they doing that day? And am I willing to miss them?
Yeah, well, you're your own person. So I knew there was, we like to say refirement rather than retirement.
Yes, right.
So that you're fired up about whatever you want to do.
That's right.
When you want to do it. And because this is me thinking about Iyanla, someone like you has so much, and you're still percolating. There's still energy flowing through you. There's still wisdom. And obviously you can't keep it to yourself.
Yeah. Well, what I really want to do, and this is an awareness that I had actually during the pandemic. My early books, Acts of Faith, Value in the Valley, In the Meantime, not even In the Meantime, but I'll just say Acts of Faith, Value in the Valley, Faith in the Valley, are books that I wrote back in the 90s. And I was on that treadmill, write a book, it does well, write another one, write a book, it does well, write another one, just pumping them out. And when 19? I went back,
19 books.
Yeah. And when I went back and looked at them, I said, there are people alive now, 20, 25 years old, who have no idea what's in these books. I want to go back and teach my books now, because with the internet and the way young people are, they like to investigate everything. I want to teach people about the value in the valley. Young people who grew up on devices and who've gone through the school system many of them, unlike us, where we had a little challenge, we had some stuff we had to deal with in the world, at home.
Yeah.
A lot of these young people, they don't know that, struggle sends them, they're like wimps.
Yeah. Yeah.
A little opposition sends them crazy. I want
Yeah.
to teach the value in the valley. So one of the things that I'm going to do is go back and actually hands-on teach the content of my early work.
Yeah.
So that I can give it, those who read it, a whole new take, and those who never read it, an introduction, because I think some of it is just so valuable. Whether, like I said, the value in the valley comes to me because of the way I see people falling apart at the slightest little thing. And also this whole notion of when something happens that they don't like, they cancel you, or what the cancel
Oh, I
culture,
know. I
just
know.
against
I
the
know.
level of againstness. I just
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah. I think you're bringing up a couple of issues. One, the books that you wrote, the principles in there are eternal, so that they don't
Yes.
have they don't have a
Expiration date.
expiration date.
Yeah.
And the same with my books, even my
Yes.
spiritual liberation, they don't have an expiration date. And that's a good idea for you to go in and teach it, because even you have a different perspective on what you wrote from
Absolutely.
where you are now.
That's right.
And these people, and you have a lot of people that are coming up now that are online teaching this stuff. They don't necessarily have the depth of wisdom and that higher consciousness. I mean, they're saying all the right stuff, They've taken a couple of workshops, they've done some seminars, they have some certificates. But someone like yourself, who's been at it 35, 40 years, can take that same sentence and go to the depth and way into the depth of that sentence. Whereas someone else that's just starting, but they're a good teacher, they're a life coach, whatever the case may be, they can't get to the depth of it yet. They're still on the surface. So we need people like you.
Yeah.
And your own material, your own books. I mean, they're timeless.
I know that is when I was, and I know that to be true, because again, I read a quote. Somebody had a meme with a quote and they had attributed to me, and I said, I wrote that. Where did I write that?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
I know. I said, I have no clue. I was glad that they told me what book it was in,
so you can get it. I know. Listen, this happened to me last week. Somebody wrote something on my Instagram. Oh, I was listening to an old talk you did back in the early 90s. And you said, never pray for desired energy, pray from a desired energy, something like that. I said, that's true. When did I say that? He said that was in 1993. I said, oh, hey, let me bring that back.
Listen,
I hear a lot of the epigenetic people saying that now too, but we were saying it 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah. And so that's the beauty of life. That's the beauty of unfolding. Like I have young grandchildren, 2018, and everything is so fatal for them. Something happens and I say, this is what I teach them. I say, it's gonna change, it's gonna shift. Say this, I can hardly wait to see the good that's gonna come out of this mess. I can hardly wait to see the good, because I promise you 10 years from now, this mess is going to be something good for you. It really will be. So to be able to go back. Yeah.
Same thing to my grandkids. It's absolutely. Yeah.
Hey, aren't they wonderful? Grandchildren for me are such wonderful teaching tools and really difficult students.
We just put one in Howard University as a freshman.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah. He's doing good, but I remember a couple of moments he'd be upset about little things. I said, well, hold on, everything's gonna be okay.
No. To them, those words make absolutely no sense. I've got one in the University of Kentucky, and I've got one at Maryland North Shore here, and another one in Tennessee State. So, they ignore me until they need something. Then I get a Cash App request. Because they don't want to hear what I have to say.
Listen, I know all about it.
Yeah, so I say they're wonderful.
We should do a book on that. We should do a book on
conscious grandparenting.
Yeah. Your second go around, how to do it right the second time around.
Right. And I learn, and I say they're really great teaching tools because they teach me how, when I would say things to my children, I would just say, do whatever, whatever, because I said so.
Mhm.
You can't say that to these young people today
No.
because they jump right on Google. You know, when you were saying so, I didn't see that.
Yeah, you were wrong.
Right.
That didn't happen.
So,
I wanted to ask you something. You have a quote on your website that is a wonderful distinction you make. You may not even remember your own quote, but I'm gonna read it to you.
God help me.
It says, you said growth work is about learning how to manage and move through where you are and what you have in a different way. That's growth work. Healing work is going back to uproot or to dig up the causes of certain habitual, unconscious, systemic behaviors and beliefs. You separated. Growth work is about learning how to manage and move through where and what you have in a different way. And healing work is going back and digging up the causes. Why is that distinction so important?
Oh, it's very important because very often people do growth work expecting the quality of their life to change, and it won't.
Mhm.
If there is a long-standing issue, a core belief, if there's a malignant root in your life, you will be able to change how you do what you do. That's growth work, changing how you do what you do. But you won't be able to change some of the conscious and unconscious things that you do until you uproot that cause at the
Right.
deepest root and cause. And it's that level of internal work. For me, very often I see growth work as out here. It's the
Mhm.
mechanics. It's the mechanics. So you can get up and pray every day and you can do your meditation, you can go to yoga, you can change your diet, and that will create a better feeling and some shift, some shift. But if you're still fighting with your sister, still haven't forgiven your father,
Mhm.
still
Mhm.
can't keep marrying the same person over and over again, can't get your money right, now we're looking at healing work
Right.
because there's a malignancy in there that's growing.
Right.
And the growth work will help you become more aware of it, but the
Right.
healing work is what's required to uproot it so that you can create total transformation and shift.
And what becomes uprooted are lies that you have about yourself, about God, about the world, that have developed into habits and actions and things like that. But when you do the growth work, it could tease it into awareness.
That's right.
But then you have to actually face it down
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
help transmute it by making better choices and becoming conscious. Because, transformation is about making the unconscious conscious.
Right.
That's what the healing work is. It becomes
Yeah.
conscious for real change.
Yeah.
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 I every year I work on something. I get one principle and I work on it with the intention of deep level, soul level mastery. So
Mhm.
for the past 4 years, I was working on trust. And I mean, I can write a treatise on trust.
Well, you wrote a good book on trust.
Yeah.
We used
I've
it here at Agape.
been yeah, oh, good.
We used it
Really
for our book of the month. Mhm.
excellent. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Really working, taking it down and down, making the distinction between trust and faith and trust and trust. And I recognize that one of the things that I could have done the first year that I didn't know to do was surrender.
Mm.
So this year, my total focus has been on surrender, just really let go and let God.
Mm.
The things I have learned about myself,
Mm.
about the human need to control, the human need to know.
Mm.
So, just in my own life. And when I'm getting busy, when I'm getting in God's way, because very often we say, I surrendered that, but we're still talking about it. We're still telling
Right.
the story about it. Or
Right.
I surrendered that, but then when it doesn't look like we think it's supposed to look, we are, upset about it. So this year, my year has been surrender. And one of the benefits of it is that as I go deeper and deeper into surrender, I've been able to recognize why certain things hang on.
Mhm. 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 Mhm.
Because I still got my fingers in it.
Yeah.
And really, surrender deepens trust. And as you deepen trust, you can expand in faith. See, I see faith and trust as two different things because
Mhm.
scriptures tell us faith without works is dead,
Yes.
but works is external.
Yes.
the scriptures also tell us that trust in the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
In is an internal thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think sometimes people try to activate their faith when they haven't developed the trust.
Yeah.
And haven't totally surrendered. That's
Right.
just my take on it. I could be very
Well,
wrong.
when you talk about trusting in the Lord, excuse me, when you capitalize that word Lord, that means that means the presence plus all the universal laws.
Yes.
And so you're trusting in something that is always the same.
That's right.
So people sit down in the chair because they trust gravity,
Right.
and, and they just do it. So when you trust, as you're saying, in the Lord, in the all, then you can let go. You're not trying to manage it. The problem that human beings have is they have a distinct idea of how they want God to answer the prayer.
That's right.
And that this distinct thought is limited.
That's right.
To the way the presence can show up in one's life. They're blocking infinite possibilities out to get their one little idea of how they think it should happen.
And believe that idea and will fight God for it. And that's where surrender comes in.
Right.
It's being able to identify those little ideas and surrender that. And surrender means totally. I've been teaching myself, I don't think about it. I don't talk about it. And when it comes up, Holy Spirit, I give this to you. Take care of everything. Mm-hmm. I won't not even 10 seconds. My mind is too powerful to spend 10 seconds in my little idea, limiting all possibilities. So it's been very, very powerful, very interesting. And I bring that up for this reason. I was initiated in 1983 and ordained in 1989, I think. Mm-hmm. If after all of these years, my brother, I'm still finding things to work on. It just, people who started 5 years ago and think they got it, it's just amazing to me.
I know, that's what
you and I have probably forgotten more than most people know.
That's exactly what I was talking about earlier. A lot of the newbies are coming up. They're saying all the right things, but they don't have the grit yet.
Yeah.
That comes from failing and trying and failing and getting up until you have a deep and abiding faith and a trust. And then you can kind of lean into this presence that is so real.
Yeah.
And like you said, you're not leaning on your own understanding, you're leaning on something else.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well, at my age, you can't lean on your own understanding because you forget. What was our understanding last week?
But then there's a difference. Interesting thing about that, because there's a difference between remembering and recollecting.
Yes.
Recollection is from the soul.
Yes.
Remembering is the brain.
Yes.
But what you've become adept at is recollection, which means you can stand up. You may have forgotten something that happened 2 years ago or whatever, but once you're in that stream, you will recollect what you need to say from the soul level. That's eternal, that's truthful, that's inspirational, that's uplifting, and it has gravitas. Well, you may have forgotten something that's meaningless.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like
where my glasses are.
Yeah, that'll eventually work itself out. Oh, here they are. Oh, here's my keys. Here's my wallet. That's interesting. I was just thinking, I just saw this guy yesterday. I was coming out of a place and I found the wallet. And we were walking out, and all of a sudden we saw this panicked face. And so we knew it was the person who lost his wallet. He's panicked, he has money, his license, everything in there. And so I said, "Hey, you looking for something?" He said, I said, "Is this it?" But he had forgotten it somewhere. But I saw that look of panic.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what? He's so glad that we found that wallet, because we don't even have a temptation of taking anything that doesn't belong to us. It wouldn't even enter our thought.
I would have been as panicked trying to find who it belonged to as he was trying to find where he lost it. Yeah, just a total shift in consciousness. But it's a beautiful thing. As we end out this year, this time cycle of 2022, and I'm seeing all of the things, all of the upheaval,
Mm.
and that's going on, whether it's Florida or Iran or the election or
Mm.
the boycotting of the Woman King.
That's a whole nother topic.
Oh God, I can't even. I didn't even know about it. First of all, I didn't even know about it. That
Listen,
boycott was going on.
I didn't know the boycott was going on too, because I saw it in Atlanta. I was back there and the place was packed.
Yeah, yeah, no. When I
And of
saw
course, there's all the hubbub about it. And I was saying, listen, I didn't come to see a biopic or a documentary.
it's a fictional story.
It's like, did you see The Harder They Fall?
Yes,
I mean, those are real names with a made up story.
I know.
I didn't go see a history lesson. I watch a documentary if I want to see a history lesson. Then I can say, oh, that's not true, or that's true. But just a movie full of women.
Well, that's the problem. It goes back to what you were speaking about earlier about the rise of the feminine
Right.
and the need of the patriarchal system to squash it, to push it down. It will not be stopped because what they're accusing or challenging Viola with in this movie, not telling the truth, not being authentic, is take a true set of facts and do a fictional story about it. It's what Law and Order does every week. It's what
every week
does every week. But men do that. But for a woman to have the audacity to do that, and I said when people brought it to me, I said, well, isn't that what they did with Black Panther?
Yeah. There's no such thing as Wakanda. Well, Wakanda. There might be, according to Dick Gregory. He was here. Michael.
So, but again, it's what you said earlier about just the feminine rising, and it's so frightening to those who think they're losing power.
Absolutely. And a lot of them are frightened and they don't even know why they're frightened. It's an unconscious pushback. It's not even, they're just nitpicking at things, but there's an unconscious pushback, colorization, unconscious pushback on so many levels. But as you're saying, as we're ending an age, we're ending, the old is dying, the new is being born, and there's a word called condensate.
Yes.
and you know what condensate is? A condensate means, in the Newtonian reality, two objects cannot occupy the same space in the same time. Mm-hmm. But in the quantum field, there's a condensate. Two objects can occupy the same space at the same time, but they're vibrating at different levels.
That's right.
So we're living in a time in which the old and the new are in the same space at the same time.
Vibrating.
The old is dying, but very loud. And the new is rising and it's becoming louder. So we're in that stage where it looks chaotic, but it's actually chaotic. There's actually an order that's rising in the chaos for those who have eyes to see and ears to hear. For those who, as you talked about earlier, are taking the time to be still, to go within, and they can see differently. They're not just getting their news from the news media. They're not taking those lies on. They're not getting their emotions from the emotional contagion that's moving through society. They're actually getting it from their inner soul. Then they can see different. They can say, oh, I see. We're ending an age.
And it's been happening for a while. So I know your listeners will. I know the Agape family does, but I just say it again, lean not on your own understanding. Lean not on your own understanding, because so much of our understanding was born of, a lack of faith, a lack of trust, a lack of surrender, was born on an imbalanced way of thinking and being. And you're going to hurt yourself. You're going to take yourself out. You're not going to be able to survive. You got to be open to new ways of being and new thinking. And the way life has done it for me was just overnight, I became the primary caregiver of my 4-year-old great-grandson. At my age.
The primary.
I'm 70, Michael. I am 70.
You're 70 years young.
My dogs are old.
You're 70 years young. So you're is the great-grandson 4 now?
He's just turned 5 last week.
So you've had him for a year.
I've had him for a year. But
Mhm.
the beauty of it is I'm looking at the education system with different eyes.
Yeah.
I'm looking at rearing him in a different way, even different than I am with my grandchildren, where I could just be, old and pining away.
Yeah.
I'm up every morning at 6:30, but
Doing
you know,
homework.
I'm doing homework at 5:30.
God
And
sent you that to keep your brain alive.
yeah, but also he's 4. He knows what a mantra is. He knows what an affirmation is. He knows how to breathe. I had the conference with his teacher today, and I was saying, if he gets a little spastic, um, because they were saying he likes attention. I said, yeah, because at home he's the only child. So
Right.
he gets all of my attention, all of his cousin and everybody. He's the baby. I said, just say to him, breathe. And she said, that is so true because we do breathing in class. And she says, anytime we say it's time to breathe, he sits down, crosses his legs, and closes his eyes.
Great grandma Iyanla got a stamp on him. But just think about the blessing he's receiving.
Yeah.
I mean, he's being imprinted with all of your wisdom in some of the simple phrases that you're saying.
Yes.
Because some people can speak volumes and not have the energy of someone who's been teaching for 40 years.
Yeah.
And he's getting that at 4 and 5 years old.
It is funny. The teacher said, he said, he did something the other day and he said, am I being disobedient?
Oh my God. That is
And
so
she
beautiful.
said, no, you're not being disobedient. I just want you to focus over here. Because I talked to him about choices and consequences, about character, about disobedience and the consequence of that. So it's just very interesting. And it's wonderful to see. I mean, I didn't do this with my kids. I didn't even do it with my grandkids. But to have that young mind,
Yeah.
to be
Oh,
able,
he's blessed. He won't even know how blessed he is for years.
well, I hope he's blessed because he told me the other day, he said, I'm going to live with you forever.
What does he call you?
Yay, yay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, the mother's mother. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's
And so, when I was getting ready to freak out about what, he's got a mother, he's got a father, and it was very clear he needs to be with you.
Mhm.
What he's come to get, you can give him.
That's beautiful.
So imagine, that I'm not doing the show anymore. I'm not traveling like I used to, and he's here. So, you couldn't have told me a year ago
Fantastic.
that
You
would
never,
be
you never know what the universe has in store for you.
never.
God's running the show. You had to surrender to it, like you talked about
Yes,
earlier.
I had to. What was I going to say? But I do understand why women stop having children at a certain age. I get
Uh, Thank God for
That's real
maturity.
clear.
Well,
Like, oh,
this has been enjoyable. I had some things on these sheets of paper I was going to ask you. We covered none of them. We covered what we need to cover.
well, I
Um,
can come back. I'll come back.
no, I'm gonna have you come back. I'll have you if you still travel. I have you come to Agape even.
Okay.
But I know you have a lot of healing programs. You have the ancestral healing. You have
Yeah.
programs about healing sexual trauma.
Yes.
You've developed a lot of programs. Are you going to continue with these programs? And
Yes.
if so, how can people be in touch with you to participate in any of these programs? And
They can
list the
go.
ones that I didn't list.
Yeah. Iyanla.com. If you sign up for our mailing list, we'll send them to you. Both of those programs were born during the pandemic. Healing ancestral patterns
Mm-hmm.
and release from sexual abuse trauma were born during the pandemic. When in silence and meditation and working with people, these were the things that needed to come out. Also, my spiritual warrior training program, teaching people really the principles of spiritual warriorhood in your life. And a spiritual warrior's job is the elimination of suffering, first their own and then that of others.
Yes.
Was also born during the pandemic. So Spirit really guided them, and I present them when Spirit tells me to. But if you are interested in it, it's not a cookie cutter every fifth of the year we do this. No, when they tell me to do it. And what I sense is that when the energy is built up for people, I offer the process. And release from sexual abuse trauma, when we did it, really There were people there who didn't have sexual trauma, but they had trauma, and they
Mhm.
still did the healing. So both of those programs, release from sexual abuse trauma, and our HAP, which is healing ancestral patterns, those are healing products. I
Yeah.
mean, program processes.
Yes.
This is about healing. This is not about intellectual anything.
Right.
So you got to be willing to do the work. I'm also doing the spiritual study sanctuary. Right now, we're doing a metaphysical interpretation of the Bible, which I just love
Mm.
because I've found, and even for myself in the past 3 or 4 years, last year, Emmett Fox was my teacher. Each year, I pick a teacher.
Mhm.
And I've worked that teacher all throughout the year. The year before that was your teacher, Howard Thurman. He was my
Mm.
teacher.
Mhm. That
um,
was deep, wasn't it?
yo, that boy was deep. He was truly a mystic.
Oh, truly.
But so each year I pick a teacher, and one of the things that I just became aware of is how people have weaponized, how people have diminished, how people have dismissed, ignored, denied, and more important, the amount of fear associated with the Bible
Mhm.
because of the way scriptures have been used to beat people, alienate people, punish people. So when
Enslaved
I,
people.
yeah, to pray about it, when I prayed about it, they said just break it down into a common everyday where Bible trained, untrained, whatever, give people an appreciation for the Bible. So I'm doing what Spirit guides me to do in the way they guide me to do it. And that and quilting and raising a 5-year-old. So I'm good to go. And trying to read my Medicare papers.
That's beautiful. Retirement for Iyanla. That's fantastic. Before we go, I mean, I worked with Ram Dass. I used to do workshops with him. We did it. We would team up and do some things together in Hawaii. But he would tell this story. He was speaking about meditation, and then he was talking about the benefits of meditation and some of the expanded states you get into meditation. And there was a lady sitting in the front row, and she was quilting. And she says, "Oh, I get that from quilting and knitting."
Yes.
He says, "I become very focused. I'm one pointed. I have no distractions. And then as I get into the groove, suddenly my consciousness just expands."
Yeah. It's been, I used to scrapbook. I did a lot of work with papers. And one of the things that took me into scrapbooking, I was reading something one day and about scrapbooking. And as I read it, I said, oh my God, that's what God does with our life.
Mm.
Takes the pieces and the parts and the little scraps and the little strips and puts them together to make something really beautiful. And my grandmother used to quilt by hand. She would take old clothes, shirts and dresses and blankets and sheets and stuff and make those patchwork quilts.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm a modern quilter, so I do it by machine.
Right.
But what I've noticed is, for me, it's, if you know anything about quilting, you cut pieces of fabric and they can be all sizes and shapes and colors. And the beautiful thing about quilting is nothing has to match.
Right.
And you
Right.
put them together. And for me, quilting elevated scrapbooking because in scrapbooking you need glue,
Mhm.
but in quilting you need thread.
Mhm.
And you stitch that together to give it more longevity.
Mm.
So putting the little pieces together, and my son will say, Mom, what you gonna do with that? But when he sees the end product, he says, I don't even believe that's what that was. I said,
That's
yeah,
like but you made that's the metaphor for our life.
yeah,
We were talking about it
absolutely.
earlier, this thing that
Absolutely.
people will go through that was so hard, but when they look at it in the context of their whole life, it may have been like one of the best moments of their life.
Yes,
That's when deep wisdom emerged, or compassion, or
absolutely.
kindness, or something to that effect. Yeah.
Faith, trust, surrender,
Yeah.
whatever it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
And what I do is every quilt has a center square. I handwrite a prayer on a piece of fabric and I put it in that center square.
Mm.
And then I put the back on it and then it's quilted together. So the prayer is quilted
Mm.
into the fabric.
Do you sell these, or is that just your
No,
own
no, I
art?
will never sell them. I would
This
never.
is for you, for yourself.
I give them away.
Oh, that's what I'm, okay. You
Give them away. I would never sell them because then it's going to become work.
Yeah. Now
This
it's
way.
clay.
I just had
It's
one.
art.
Yeah. I just
Art.
had one auctioned or one. I just prepared one that's going to be auctioned off to support the Sitar Arts Foundation in Washington, D.C., which is an arts foundation that supports, those are my dogs, peace and freedom. Would you like to meet? Come here.
Peace and freedom.
And freedom. Come here. This is peace. Oh, I'm sorry, baby. I'm sorry. This is peace. Say hi.
Hey, peace.
So they're going to auction that one off to raise money for a community arts program.
Oh, that's beautiful.
This is freedom. So this is peace and freedom. So, okay, what are you're frantic. Take a breath. Take a breath. And so it's just been really wonderful. And the quilt that I'm auctioning off is called Amazing Grays, Grays. The whole quilt is different shades of gray that I've blended together. I've called it Amazing Grays.
Hey, this has been lovely.
Thank you. I've had fun.
Thank you for being with us on Take Back Your Mind. And you gave us a lot of pearls of wisdom on how people can take back their mind from being hijacked, worry and doubt and fear and the lies that we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
absolutely appreciate you.
Thank you. And have me back so I can answer the questions you didn't ask me.
I will have you back sooner than you think.
Okay.
We've been with Iyanla Vanzant. Wasn't that a magnificent interview? And we will have her back. Peace and blessings, everyone. Peace and blessings. And now, as we do on a weekly basis, we have a moment of meditation together. We extrapolate to a degree what me and my guest have talked about, and in this case, it's my sister, Iyanla Vanzant. And we pick a theme and we kind of just go in and work with it. Now, she had a distinction between spiritual work and healing. And so we're going to move with that during this particular meditation. So I invite you in this particular moment to just close your outer eyes. You just tap at the space between your eyebrows. It's an activation and an intention to begin to see without eyes and to hear without ears, because you are pure consciousness. Your feet are firmly planted on the ground, unless you're sitting in a full lotus position. Your hands are on your lap facing upward. We take a deep breath. Release. Receive another breath. Release. Receive one more breath. And release. And as we're sitting here in meditation, begin to be aware that all of the power, all of the presence, all of the love, the beauty, the intelligence, the abundance, begin to feel that it is right where you are right now. Begin to feel this, that you're not reaching out to get abundance. You're not reaching out to get external validation. You're not reaching out for success. You're not reaching out for anything. You're inwardly feeling and accepting that right where you are is all of the power, the presence, the love, the beauty, the intelligence, the harmonizing prosperity and abundance is right here. You are a perfect idea that is unfolding. Perfection unfolding. This is spiritual work. To begin to feel this, to begin to inwardly see this about yourself, and to begin to vibrationally affirm this. say either out loud or inwardly, say, all of my needs are met, and I am perfectly unfolding divine health, well-being, prosperity, and joy. Health, prosperity, well-being, and joy. Now, for the healing part, notice any sentence or belief that pops up that counters that. Don't resist it, just notice it. Maybe something says, I'm not good enough, I'm unworthy, they said I'll never succeed. Just whatever pops up in your awareness that counters what you did in your spiritual work. Now in this moment, realize that that which is countering that is a lie. A lie believed acts as a law until it is neutralized. So the spiritual healing component is to look at the lie and to now consciously denounce it. Say inwardly, that is a lie, it is not true. And then counter that with your willingness to reveal the seeming opposite. If the lie says I'm unworthy, say in substance, I am worthy of the all good. All of my needs are met. Feel into that. Stop and have a moment of silence. Feeling that right where you are is the power, the presence, the love, the intelligence, the beauty, the abundance. Any lie that pops up, inwardly denounce it and say a truth, powerful affirmation. Denounce and affirm. Feel into this in this moment and enter now with me into a state of holy gratitude that what you're saying about yourself is what the universe is saying about you. You are worthy, magnificent, perfect idea unfolding perennially, and it's all happening now. And so it is. Your time is very valuable, so I want to thank you for lending us your ear and participating in taking back your mind. If you want to submit a question for the question of the week, please submit it to podcast@michaelbeckwith.com. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, please submit a review and let us know your thoughts. Stay on top of current episodes by subscribing to the podcast so that you'll receive alerts and not miss one single episode. And feel free to share this podcast with all of your friends and family. And until we meet again, take back your mind, and you will take back your life. Peace and blessings.